You are listening to Future Voices, a podcast brought to you by BH Futures Foundation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest Futures Voices podcast. My name is Ahmed, and I'm education team lead in Bosnia Herzegovina Futures Foundation. Today, with us, far away from Brussels, Belgium, is our esteemed guest, Elma Orucevic. Elma is the head of office at Minister of European Parliament, Irena Joveva, and she is accredited parliamentary assistant at the European Parliament. Thank you for joining us today, Elma, and welcome to Futures Voices podcast.
Thank you, Ahmed. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so I would like to open this podcast with you telling us a little bit about your early life, about your educational journey, and how did you decide to pursue a career in diplomacy?
So yes, my early life maybe was the typical sad story of a child born in the 90s in Mostar. So my first years of my childhood I spent in, I think, the experience of growing up as a foreigner, so to say, or as someone who didn't know what or her home country was, really impacted my future choices I made in life. So after we went back to Mostar, I went to a high school and a music school, but since that was in a way not enough, I decided to join the United World College or apply for the United World College in Mostar, where my English speaking education started. And after that, I stayed in Bosnia Herzegovina, which not many did after these studies. And I studied journalism and political communications. And then I did my master's in Austria and Slovenia. And in between, I did a few traineeships we can talk about later. And somehow out of these traineeships, I ended up working for the European Parliament now since 5.5 years. So it was maybe a subconscious choice. I never consciously wanted to work in politics, especially because for us in our country, politics has a negative connotation. But I think given my life story, I owed it to myself and to the world in a way to do something to help or to not allow, or at least to try not to allow, that more people have to go through what we did.
Yeah, I think I can really resonate with that idea of politics because my background is in mechanical engineering, but with the work I do in foundation, most of the time I find myself more pursuing communication skills, more pursuing political stances and everything, which is kind of hard to balance out. But you mentioned quite a few internships that you did. So maybe we can circle back to that topic a little bit, and then we can continue to other questions.
Yes, so my first traineeship was an unpaid one, I have to mention. And I was 22 years old, and it was here in Brussels at the European Parliament. But in the end, I managed to get a scholarship and do the traineeship because otherwise it would have been impossible to live in Brussels because my parents, of course, living in Mostar, could not help me come here. And then that was the first traineeship where I feel I grew up a lot in those years. I thought I knew something, but when I came to do the traineeship, I realized that I actually don't know too much. But it was good because I managed to learn a lot and I met a lot of people. And that's when I understood that maybe this is something I could be doing in the future. Then my second traineeship was again at the European Parliament. At the time it was paid. And where my former boss decided to hire me following that traineeship. But in between the hiring and the traineeship with his office, I was a fellow at the California State Senate. So that was also a very good experience that I also never planned I would do, or I never dreamt I would end up there. But all these traineeships really taught me to to do a job, because I feel, at least when you do social sciences, you don't really get too many skills you can use at work. But then when you're put into a work environment, you actually do the real work, but you're kind of a beginner, and then you have mentors and stuff. You actually manage to learn a lot, and then after use it in your, if you want, real job.
Yeah, that really sounds incredible. I mean, for someone that's just started, like you said, in Mostar and doing the free internships, I think that really can tell us a little bit how does volunteering impact your future? Because if it wasn't for that first unpaid internship and you saying yes to it, God knows what position you would be now, or would you even be at this part of Europe or anything. So I think this can be just idea for our future scholars and volunteers that it's a step-by-step process and nothing will just come and nobody will be like, okay, here you go, you are now in parliament and you can do whatever you want. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it takes a lot of effort and unpaid work if you want, but in the end, it's also working experience for you. And the first job will probably not be your dream job, but it will be a thing where you learn a lot. And that's, I think, already a very valuable experience. So, and all the rejections you get on the way, and all the many traineeships you do, but don't do too many, will for sure help you in your career afterwards.
yeah, so we can now go a little bit to your career. So you have successfully carried out various projects in Bosnia and Herzegovina and a lot of them abroad. So how was your working experience with professionals, maybe from other countries, differentiated from working with individuals from Bosnia and Herzegovina? And what are the biggest challenges you faced in your professional career? I believe there are many.
Yes, there are many. And I think that when most of the people who grow up in Bosnia, Herzegovina, they grow up hearing that they cannot do something, they're not capable of doing it, that they're too young, that they don't know, and that they shouldn't talk and shouldn't speak their opinion because nobody cares. And because we need to listen to what others have to say, and we cannot change anything anyways. So that was my experience working and trying to do projects in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Actually, nobody got the point that I wanted to do something, that I wanted to do something for free, which was even more suspicious, especially because it came mainly to human rights. People in companies or that we worked with at that time, they didn't really know what a 20-year-old girl from Mostar is so ambitious and wants to tell them how to do things. So it was very discouraging at many moments. And you hear a lot of, bad words, even a lot of critics, a lot of discouragement, and a lot of misunderstanding. But then, well, you keep trying, and in the end, we did it somehow. But it was much more easier to do it somewhere abroad where people actually listen to you, where people care, where people will not discredit you because you're young or because you're a young woman, and will not think that they are smarter and know better just because they're older than you and have a job. So in all the other countries, it was just so much easier because people would actually listen, and then you felt that you are heard. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, I many times didn't feel it. And I still wonder how come it didn't discourage me. But I think I just had this spite that I said, okay, I will do it. And at some point, somebody will listen and I will manage to do it. And that's how I managed to do a few projects also back home. Because at the end, our people, I think, deserve better. And I did it for the people in Bosnia and Herzegovina and not for these individuals or politicians in our country, if you want.
Yeah, still, I have to say this really seems to resonate with me and the work that Bosnia and Herzegovina Futures Foundation does with almost now a decade here. And I know, like 4 years ago, when I told someone, okay, I'm doing this for free, I'm trying to make Bosnia better, and I was like, you're not getting paid. You have like 800 hours yearly in this, and why are you here? And just that dream and idea that together we can work through education, knowledge, technology to bring our people back to position where we are actually academically at the top of the world. Like when last year I worked with Rector Magnificus of Maastricht University, and she's actually her name is Pamela Habibovic, and she's from Srebrenica, and I'm like, how did you even manage to get there? And so I think that our people really needs just a little push that will tell them, okay, we can do this, and we can always find a way to do it. So
Mm.
maybe we can go a little bit now to the soft skills that you have perfected, I would say, during all these years. And one of those can be, and I hope is, decision making. Basically, how did the knowledge and experience gained from the internships prepare you for the next stages of your career? Like, was that some position that you had position, okay, now it's my time to say this is the way that something's gonna happen, or is that something that someone else did and you just when later in career had that position of power, let's say, to make some executive decisions?
So I think one thing I learned in these past years was to never listen to what people tell you, because if I listened, I don't think I would have even studied, especially I wouldn't have studied social sciences. So whenever people told me, don't do things for free, don't go there, it's a dangerous, it's a big city, it's whatever it is, I still did it. And if I listened to what everyone else had to say, I think I wouldn't be as happy as I'm now, to put it in the nicest way I can. But the internships that I did, I think they just taught me to see my value, because also what you said before, the internships I did were abroad, and it was the first time somebody listened to me and somebody accepted my ideas and opinions and somebody talked to me on the same level. And that's when you gain a bit of self-confidence, where you gain self-esteem, where you think, okay, maybe my opinions do count. Maybe I am skilled. Maybe I am even smart, even though in the past people were never telling me this. And I think that's the most important skill, that you learn who you are, that you get to know yourself, that you become much more self-aware, and that you lose fear to go somewhere, to do things, and you really grow up fast, and you learn these skills you didn't have. Maybe you always had them, but you didn't have a chance to show them. And I think that when you realize how much you're capable of doing, that's the best thing you can learn. And the only way for you to learn it is to be put out in a huge environment, into an internship you probably know nothing about. Maybe you're even unpaid. You're in a very difficult or different, hostile even environment sometimes, but that's where you grow, and that's the best that can happen to you. That's what you realize in the end, not during the traineeship, because you think that it's all too much, that it's all for nothing, as they would tell you also in our country. But in the end, what you learn and who you become is probably the best skill you can get.
Thank you so much. I really loved the way you explained this topic, and I really think that a lot of our viewers and scholars will enjoy listening to this. So we mentioned a little bit about politicians, about the people in Bosnia, but also one of the topics is about our academic community. My question would be, is it highly in need of experienced professionals? And would you ever consider working in academia? And why not? I can say, I think.
Well, I will never say no to anything, because whenever I said I would not do something, I ended up doing it. So that's another lesson I can maybe teach you, to never say no. I think the academia, especially in our countries, is in need of skilled, maybe good people, to put it this way, because I really think that young people are the future, and the future of our country. And since our country deserves better, it also needs better people in academia. I studied in Bosnia Herzegovina, so unfortunately I know what I'm talking about, because you didn't always have probably the people you would expect to be in these positions. I think I would be good in academia. That's what maybe would drive me back in a way someday. But even though I'm not there. I try to use my knowledge and my skills and give it to the younger generation and to other people in different ways, not through the system of academia. But it's true that academia needs good people, and it's also very sad that in our country they're underpaid, that the situation at university is very bad. I've been through all it, so I know it's really not easy, especially because politics is many times involved, which doesn't make it easier. But yes, maybe, I don't know, in 10, 20 years, I will be having this talk at university. I don't know. But I hope that some of the scholars of the Bosnia Herzegovina Future Foundation will actually go back to academia and give this sense back to our students that they're worth it, and that their ideas count, and that they don't need to go abroad to find out that this is true.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe one of our viewers is professor from our community somewhere in the academic spectrum of Bosnia, and just next day after publishing this podcast, people will be like, "Okay, we want you here. We want you to teach." And to continue on that theme, I would like to talk about your current position in the European Parliament and the most recent projects and what is next for you.
So yes, I work for a member of the European Parliament, or if you want, a politician. So my boss, she got elected in Slovenia, the European elections. My former boss was elected in Sweden as also a Bosnian Herzegovinian citizen. His name was Jasenko Selimovic. And so I worked for politicians, and maybe something that I'm not sure if this is a good thing to recommend to young students who are listening, and maybe who are a bit lost or who don't really know what the next step is. I never planned anything in my life. I never planned what I will study, where I will go, what I want to do, how long I will stay somewhere. I really never had a plan. And even at this moment, I don't have a plan. So it's for me, it worked so far. So if you ask me, where do I see myself? I don't know. It could be Belgium. It could be my second home country, Germany, where I grew up, Bosnia, the Netherlands. I don't know. Maybe where life takes me, or my next job, or love. I don't know. But I think that just when you see opportunities, you should not be afraid of them. And the best thing you can do is do something that you like. And as long as you're happy and it works for you, you should do it. And when it doesn't, then there's no need to stay there, be it a place, be it a job, be it whatever it is. So my current job is until next year, July. And after that, I will see if something new comes up, if something little changes or something much changes. I don't know. So maybe I can tell you more one day after the end of this mandate. So, but for the moment, I don't know.
Well, I would be happy to organize another podcast or some educational activity, and we can talk about it maybe, well, this time of year, next year. What else I would like to talk about is about in one interview that we saw, you said that you would never see yourself in traditional role of a Balkan woman. And how has your professional career empowered you to utilize all of your potential as a woman in your field of work? And what impact do you aim to leave on the girls and young women? And this doesn't need to be only, let's say, in your sphere of work, but like we can talk about empowering a woman in every sphere. Like I can speak about technical fields, that there is a large difference in the number of young women that apply to go to engineering schools. And is that something that's different in Europe, or is it the same as in Bosnia? So can you provide us a little bit insight about that?
So unfortunately, I think in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are still only doing baby steps when it comes to talking about the role of women, be it in STEM, in politics, in whatever. And that in our society, it's quite difficult still to be a woman in any position, because you're faced with a lot of stereotypes. We still have expectations how women should be, what women should do, at what age you should get married, what you should study. And what I can tell you is that there is no right way, there is no right age, there is no right study, there is nothing, because nobody else can know it better than you yourself. And then the worst part, maybe, that I I went through, and I wish I had somebody to tell me that it's not like this everywhere in the world. If it's like that in Bosnia, it's that you are being looked down at many times just because you're a young woman, and yeah, you hear strange comments from men in power positions. I think it's in general not easy. And then the best thing you can do is to show and lead by your example that it can be done, and that is difficult, but it's possible. And even in politics, even in Brussels here, it's difficult to be a woman in politics, but I think not as difficult as in Bosnia Herzegovina. I just want to say to all the girls who are discouraged, to wonder if they're doing the right thing, who wonder if they're missing out on something, if who are scared because they don't live as their mothers did, or who don't fulfill the ideas or expectations of their parents, that it's okay, because maybe that means that they're actually doing a good job. So not to give up on the dreams because of someone else's expectations, and to just do whatever you feel like you're doing, because there's no right or wrong. And just because you're a woman, maybe you're not less worth, you're just as worth or even more worth than anyone else, and nobody else can tell you that. Even if your society tells you this, it's not true. The issue is our society, it's not you.
Thank you so much for explaining it in such a detail. So one of my next questions is, how can someone ambitious in your field of work, how can someone start out? What is this? What are some of your recommendations for young people in Bosnia? Which point is a good start in your opinion? In your opinion, how to get there?
I think the most important thing is, as I said, traineeships, because traineeships are your door to jobs. So traineeships, even this free work, as our parents would call it, volunteering, networking, these are all important things to do to get to a job, or to get to a contact, or to get at least an idea of what you maybe want to do. And be it the Schumann traineeship in Brussels, or some traineeships with the EU delegation, some volunteering opportunities with another organization in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For example, for me, Humanity in Action was very important, because they helped me to get to my first traineeship, and they helped me to get more involved into human rights and after do all these projects. But then even if you think that it's very difficult and it's worthless and it takes a lot of your time and a lot of your energy, none of it is worthless, because maybe not today and not tomorrow, but at some point it will all be worth it, because the things you learn, the people you meet, they are the most important skill or the most important capital you can gain. It's at that moment not the money you lose. You maybe feel that you're losing a lot of time and maybe nerves, but in the end, it's really worth it, because once you get a job and you look back, you see how it all came together and how it all just brought you where you want and where you should be.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer, I must really say. So maybe we can talk a little bit about your future projects while working with your, minister that's elected. So is there some projects that are going on now that are gonna affect Bosnia, European Union? Is there some project that you actually can talk about and tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, so mainly my boss, she's working for at the moment the European Media Freedom Act. Of course, we're also involved at the Western Balkans. We are following the events that are going on, and the very, very big volunteering program, European Solidarity Corps, that we're working on. And these are maybe some of the most important things at the moment, but also next year, there are European elections. So we will see how the things will change. And but what I want to say for Bosnia and Herzegovina and for our people, what is important is that the EU is not that distant, because at some point we also want to become EU member states. So all the things that get into law, into legislation here, will eventually need to be implemented in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. So things that are going on in Brussels are not really irrelevant. That's actually things that we should bear in mind, and because it will be our future. And I can tell you that the European future is, for Bosnia and Herzegovina, is the only way we at the moment have, and that it's much, that I don't think there's a better alternative. There is no alternative to that.
Yeah, maybe we can expand a little bit about that European journey that Bosnia is taking now that you are Bosnian by your heritage, but spent so many years now in European Union and working directly in Parliament. What is your take on the future of Bosnia, and will it be in our lifetimes that we see those stars aligned next to Bosnia and Herzegovina presidency or parliament?
In our lifetime, I think so, yes, but I don't think anybody really knows when. But I really think that our country, just all the countries that want to join, just need to do so much more when it comes to reforms, and they need to do the reforms for their people and not as a box ticking exercise to please somebody else. So I'm confident that a new generation will bring our country closer to the European Union, because unfortunately what we see now, that the conversations our politics is having is not taking us yet there. So I think that there's always a way, but when that will be, I think, maybe it's written in the stars, but we don't know.
Yeah, well, we can only hope to be as soon as possible. I think one of the big things for myself and the other youth is the difference when choosing where to study. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, as a non-European Union passport holder, let's call it like that, university fees are enormous for someone that comes from working class family. And if you just talk about academia, we can see that Bosnia joining the European Union would make such a large impact and open up so many possibility for our young youth, and not to even talk about economy or anything else. I think that just that one little segment would make a huge impact on our society. So to end this, I have one last question. Okay, two last questions, but let's say it's one. So which city do you consider your home right now, and how does those feelings fit with your future plans? So you said that you do not have any must happen ideas, but are you still visiting Bosnia? Is that something that's happening, or is there any other idea? Maybe, I don't know, moving to China. What? Who knows? One day, what futures holds. Okay, it's a little bit too much China and European Union mixing it together. Not often. You don't hear that often, but just to put it in perspective, is there your home city, place that you call home, or are you just easy to maneuver in any place that you're put?
I think that yeah, home can be any place. I mean, you can feel home in many places at the same time, and home can also be, I don't know, a job, a hobby, whatever. But for me, actually, home is Mostar. And Mostar will forever be my home, even though I lived more years abroad than in Mostar, but that's where my parents are. That's where I come from. That's where my last name is from. So Mostar is, I think, and behind me there's also a picture of Mostar. Wherever I go, there's a picture of Mostar wherever I stay. So that's for me who I am, and because it also marked my life a lot, and who I became. The fact that I was born there, but in the last 5.5 years, it's also Brussels, and I learned the languages here, so it makes it a bit easier. But when I come to Brussels, I say, okay, I go home, but also when I go to Mostar, I say I go home, and I go still quite often back home. So I think at the moment it's a bit Brussels, a bit Bosnia Herzegovina, but it's also Germany because I spent a big part of my life there. So I think maybe I can have these more homes, but my heart is at home in Mostar.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. I really must say. So when it comes to official questions, that would be it. But I think as someone that's traveled well through most of the Europe, what really needs to be answered is pineapple on pizza, yes or no? The burning question we all want to know.
No. No and no, and I love Italy, and I think, yeah, it's a bit too American, so no.
Yeah, I mean, I needed to finish strong with that last question. Really, it's a must.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thanks really for the talk. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Elma, and I want to thank you for joining us on this, the first episode in this season of Futures Voices podcast, and I hope that we will hear from you soon.
Thank you.